to conduct meeting in private, and there are some potential items under confidential. Yes, Councillor Kelly's nodding, so we will, at the appropriate point, exclude the press and public, as set out here. No deputations and questions from the public. Can I get the unrestricted minutes of the meeting on the 13th of March? I won't go through them line by line, but are there any issues, corrections that anyone wishes to raise?
No, thank you, Chair.
Agree those as a true record? Great. Thank you. Hello. Which brings us to item 7, about social care transformation business case. Sorry, I didn't do the live streaming bit there, did I?
That's okay.
Right. Okay, so item 7. I have had some questions from Councillor Benny-Lowick, which I'll read out after the introduction. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy. And can I invite Jenny Murphy, please, to I think Jenny, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So with this report, committee members are asked to approve the recommendation to go out to tender for a delivery partner to support the design and implementation phases of the Adult Social Care Transformation Programme. The contract will be for up to 3 years, and the value will be capped at the price submitted by the winning bidder and released as savings are achieved. Members may be aware that last year we appointed a strategic partner to support the first phase of the transformation project to undertake a diagnostic exercise, which was to identify opportunities for delivering improved outcomes for the residents of the borough who access medical care. The diagnostic identified a number of areas that would benefit from a redesign of how care is delivered and how to help people to stay independent, resilient and well supported. It actually showed the potential to improve outcomes for up to 4,000 Hackney residents, whilst at the same time giving benefits to the council of up to 32 million over the next 5 to 6 years. So we're now in a position to be able to move into the design and implementation phase to deliver those benefits in partnership with a service provider who would be asked to demonstrate their sound experience and track record of delivering similar work. And really the thought behind the engagement of a delivery partner will enable a truly independent view of our current practice, as is shown through the diagnostic. It will also help us to prepare for the forthcoming CQC inspections. The diagnostic itself has demonstrated the effectiveness of that approach and lays the foundations for the next phase of the project. We know there's a well-developed market for these types of companies who in themselves hold vast amounts of insights and information on areas of best practice elsewhere within the council we wouldn't. And this provides a further opportunity for Hackney to test and learn from alternative approaches that are proven to be effective elsewhere. So the diagnostic, as I mentioned, has shown some embedded practice that requires culture change to improve. We anticipate the work taking up to 3 years. If we were to attempt to do it ourselves, we know it would be significantly longer for us to do that, and we wouldn't have the resource in the way that is required. We also anticipate that we wouldn't be able to achieve the amount of cost avoidance as we would is working with a delivery partner. If, for example, we were to bring in interim staff or staff on fixed term contracts, we would have to pay for this work regardless of the outcomes achieved. And one thing that the tender paperwork stipulates is that the providers would be asked to work on a risk reward basis, meaning that if the agreed milestones aren't achieved, there'd be no cost to the council, or the company would be asked to work at no additional cost until such time as they are achieved. And that is a market that's used to working in that way, we know that. So the proposal is for an evaluation team to score bidders on both quality and price, and the recommended contract award will be based on the most economically advantageous bid. The work itself will be overseen by a governance group whose membership will include senior officers from within adult social care, transformation, operations, commissioning, finance, and we will involve legal as required as well. And that will be the group that will also be responsible for having oversight and tracking progress against the outcomes sought. So in developing the tender paperwork, we've taken that cross-departmental approach, and it's been very successful. And we're now at a point where all of the key officers are happy with it, posing no risk to the council to go to the market for the work. So if it is agreed today, we're ready to go out for expressions of interest, and it's then proposed that permission to award the contract will come back here in July once the tender process is complete.
Okay, so I'll just counsel. Anyone have any questions? Sorry, I'll ask Councillor Billy Lovett questions when you finish.
Okay.
And after Councillor Woodley.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to put on record my thanks to Jenny and the team, and actually Rotimi and his team, because this is the first time the council has undertaken something of this nature and this scale, and actually making sure we got the right things in place and we were doing everything in the right order and legally correctly proved to be trickier than I think anybody thought to start with. And it's really good to see the business case coming here. I really look forward to seeing the final contract come back to us in July. And I do genuinely think we'll be able to stick to that timetable. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And Councillor Woodley.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to comment, I guess, on the strategic context, which we're all familiar with at this table, but I hadn't actually realised until looking at this paper more closely quite how much is going to be juggled in terms of social care reform, liberty protection, safeguards. I'm looking at 5.21, and I'm just conscious that sometimes work can continue in parallel and it's iterative and you can absorb, and sometimes something slips and it impacts on everything else. So I just wanted a little bit of reassurance around that, whether we're looking at spinning plates or carefully organised work. And, you know, I think other than that, I'm just happy to see this come forward and I'm keen to get on with it. So, you know, I do support the proposal.
Did Jenny Murphy want to come back on that before I ask Councillor?
Yes, please. So I think it does feel realistic. So in the same way that we undertook the diagnostic, it will be existing officers that work with the delivery partner on the work, and having that governance group would be the way to ensure that at the heart, kind of the most senior officer level, there's ownership and we're able to track the progress. And I think all of those people, myself included, would have awareness of all the other pieces of work. And I think that is the right level to have that group at, to be able to ensure that nothing's tinkered with in one part of the system that affects another, in terms of capacity and otherwise.
Okay, thank you. If I could just, let's read Councillor Billy Lovett's questions. I'll read them all through at once, if that's all right.
Check Councillor Bramble's was online.
Oh, right. Apologies, I didn't see you there tonight. Sorry, you're on the big telly. Yeah, and Councillor Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies I can't be there in person. Not quite 100%. Councillor Woodley touched on the issues of making sure that the transition was as smooth as possible and wanted to reiterate that. I think that it's great to hear that we can accommodate up to 4,000 residents, but just wanted to know what capacity there might be in the system if more people than the 4,000 if identified, and what that might look like. Thank you, Chair.
So the figure of 4,000 wasn't new people, but it was identified as potential to improve outcomes for that many people. So we would expect those that are either already in care to have some tweaks potentially through the changes to the system, and also for the new people coming in to have that. So it wouldn't be opening the floodgates for that many new people to come into adult social care.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said, back to Councillor Billy Lovett's questions. This proposed transformation of adult social care depends upon demand management and cost avoidance, section 510. Can Councillor Kennedy, maybe with the help of officers, outline where community input or patient voice sits in this plan? There is redesigning how care is delivered in the borough to make sure reduction in quality of care is not at risk because of cost avoidance. Yeah, all one sentence. Paragraph 5H states that the second question, sorry, Paragraph 5.8 states that the diagnostic work has also shown that it is easier to undertake critical challenges and be visionary if not so close to the embedded practices of council officers are, inverted commas. Is there an inverse risk that an external transformation team working on a no-win, no-fee type basis will have less skin in the game, as it were, and be less motivated and informed by long-term, real-world experience and service delivery? Got that? And the third question is, can Councillor Kennedy explain what is meant by some poor practice in the current culture of adult social care, section 511, which it is felt external agencies will be a better place to address? So I don't know if Councillor Kennedy wants to come back first. I direct that straight to the officers.
I'll happy to come. I'll come back with a sort of overview on those three. So the first one, absolutely a reminder back to Councillor Binny Lubbock that we are a council that is committed to co-production, and that at all stages we will be working with service users. As you just heard in Jenny's reply to Deputy Mayor Bramble, we're actually looking at not only improving the packages of care that we allot to people who come new to us, but we're also looking at improving the packages of care working with people who are already known to us and who we're already working with. Jenny may wish to elaborate a bit more on that. Skin in the game in terms of question 2. Of course the provider will have skin in the game, because if they don't produce any results, then the investment that they put into working with us, and over the course of 3 years, it's expected they could invest up to about £1 million. That's what we're looking to, depending on who goes for the contract, who wins the contract, what kind of level. But they will be heavily investing their own resources upfront, based on the fact that it's they have to produce results in order to get a profit. So they will have a large amount of skin in the game, whoever they are. And then I'll give one example by way of answering question 3 in terms of current law service. The diagnostic, for example, indicated areas in which we were delivering standard packages of care to people coming out of hospital. We weren't tailoring it enough to individuals' needs and looking accurately enough at how soon people could become independent. And we were actually over providing packages that was meaning people were getting, it was taking them longer to get to a state of being less independent because of what we were providing them. So actually it was bad for us and bad for the individual. And I'm afraid that's the kind of poor service that we want to drive out.
Thank you very much. I had just one question.
Oh, you haven't let Jenny.
Oh, sorry, Jenny.
She wanted to add to any of that.
My apologies. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to provide some reassurance, really, that whilst savings through cost avoidance are expected, that the work is primarily about improving outcomes for individuals by maximising independence. So it's not about increasing thresholds or reducing the number of people supported, but it is about potentially providing care in a different way. So, for example, in terms of the number of hours of reablement that people are receiving, again, through the case studies, it showed that tends to be a consistent amount of hours over 6 weeks, despite the fact that people may be becoming more independent. So if we were to tweak that and safely reduce those hours over time, those hours could be delivered to somebody else to give them the chance to improve as well. And so it's looking at systems and processes as opposed to concentrating on the savings. And I hope that doesn't come across too much in the paper that it is anticipated that savings will be achieved, but it really is about improving outcomes for individuals. And then just in terms of the case studies, again, just to provide a bit of context. So in the first diagnostic phase, a deep dive was undertaken into around 70 cases. Through looking at those, it was identified that around about 60% of those people could have potential for improved outcomes by doing things in a slightly different way. And I think staff had worked well with the delivery partner in identifying those opportunities, and they're enthusiastic about the challenge of implementing them, but they'll just need the right support on how to get there. And that's where we need to look at the whole system really, rather than individuals.
Thank you. That's helpful. Just my one question is that obviously we're looking for assistance in all this work, that's the whole point of this paper. But I'm assuming that there'll still be a huge amount of resource input needed from the council side in terms, not just talking about money, I'm talking about staffing and time and all that. Just how are we organising for that, if that's the case?
Yeah, so I think we've made it clear again through the tender documents that we aren't going to be bringing in additional council staff for that. The resource for the kind of the day-to-day and getting underneath the detail will be provided by the delivery partner, but they'll be working with us in terms of checking out their findings, agreeing baselines, setting the outcomes, and so on. We know we've got the resource. We have got the resource to do it because, through the transformation team and other parts of adult social care, we have the resource to do it, and that will be part of business as usual, really, to bring about those improvements. It's not going to be a quick, it will take up to the 3 years to start delivering them, or not to start delivering them, but to sort of complete delivering them. The other part that's included in the tender documentation is for the delivery partner to ensure sustainability in the outcome. So it won't be a case of once they withdraw, it will be back to council officers and go back to sort of the old ways of practicing. Part of what we're commissioning them to do will be to deliver that sort of training on culture change and the longevity of the process changing rather than just the here and now.
Okay then, and I note that we usually spend some time in this committee on the sustainable procurement issues. And I note that these are, you set out the principles basically in 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, so 4 of them, Paul, and these will be developed more as you begin discussions now, aren't they? That's my understanding. We can pick up on those again. I think we should, when we look at the tender reporting, what was it, June, you said? July.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else from members before we move to recommendations? So if we can agree the recommendation to go out to tender as set out in item 3.1.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Can I echo Councillor Kennedy's thanks to all the staff involved in this huge project, and thank you for your work and wish you well with it, both procurement and yourselves. Thank you. So we've moved to item 8, procurement of the core insurance provision contracts. This was, we delegated this to officers because of the difficulty in the insurance market, and this report is essentially for note, but is someone going to...
It's enhanced health visiting service.
I missed one.
Yeah.
Well, too many bits of paper, so. Right, okay, scrap that. Item 8 then, general exception, City and Hackney enhanced health visiting service, which is going to be Nicola Donnelly, I think. No, or Lola Oluwole.
Yes, it's Lola Oluwole. Thank you, Chair. I've also got my colleague Caroline she'll be taking some service specific questions later. So I'll just do a brief introduction of the report. So we're here just to ask the committee to agree to award the contract to provider A for the enhanced health visiting service. It's going to be for a 5-year period from the 1st of September 2023. And the total value of the contract will be a maximum of 34.8 million. So just a bit of background about this service. The enhanced health visiting is a service for children and families from pregnancy up to 5 years, and is designed to deliver at scale and intensity that is proportionate to the needs of the community. The aim of the service is to provide a needs-led model which provides more tailored and evidence-based interventions at 5 different levels, and the model will provide flexibility and will allow families to progress between the different service according to their needs. The model will cover new intensive home visit service, which would also cover a number of vulnerable families with complex needs, including older parents and those that have children already, and those that have previous children removed. The model will comprise 3 additional targeted visits, which will be in addition to the 5 mandated visits as well. And it will cover things like speech, language, and communication reviews at 9 to 12 months visit, 2 to 2.5 years visit, and a visit at 3 to 3.5 years. The model would also include an 18-month desktop review of children's health records to ensure that outstanding remedial action is identified and addressed. So in procuring this service, we looked at various options. First option is to procure the service as it is, which is the existing health visiting service, but we find that would not allow for integrated and enhanced health visiting service with a delivery model that will be flexible to the needs of the local population. The other option that we looked at was the procurement of the family nurse partnership and the family and the health visiting service to be tendered as one service. And this was the most preferred option because the model would incorporate the modernized 2021 Healthy Children Program guidance. We also looked at option 3, which is to do nothing. The local authority have mandated responsibilities under the Health and Social Care Act of 2012, and so doing nothing would not discharge our legal responsibilities. The other option that we looked at is insourcing, but this particular service was felt that it would not be appropriate for insourcing because this is a clinical and highly specialized service that requires formal CQC registration, clinical expertise, and clinical services, clinical supervision. And we just felt that the council doesn't have the professional staff to be able to deliver this service. In terms of the tender evaluation, so this was an open procurement process. It was in line with the Public Contract Regulations 2015. We did have an engagement event, so there was a prior information notice that was published on Pro-Contract on the 1st of August 2022. It was advertised widely, and about more than 14 organizations attended the event, and the event took place on the 8th of September. So in turn, the bid was advertised on Pro-Contract, Find a Tender, London Tenders, and was published on the council website. The link was sent to around 22 organizations. They all accepted the link on the system. It was published between 19th of October 2022, and it closed on the 7th of December 2022. In all, we only received 1 submission, and the evaluation panel looked at that submission and felt that provider A had the expertise that is required to be able to deliver this service. The tender was carried out in a 2-stage process. Stage 1 was a technical competency question, and stage 2 was the skills, knowledge, and experience required to deliver the service. So we're asking, this report is just to ask that the committee approves provider A for them to be awarded the contract. They are scored a 58% on quality and 30% on price. The panel felt that it was a high quality bid and it was scored well in all areas. The panel was confident that provider A will be able to provide a high quality service that will meet the needs and objectives that is set out within the service specification. And we also felt that it was within the budget as well. So we're happy to take questions.
Thank you. If I could start with just a process question, I just we know the general exception requirement here, and realise the importance and the need to be timely with the report, but also wondered that it's not exactly a surprise that we need to do the review the service. So just wondered why it ended up as a general exception when it probably could have been foreseen that we would have need to have done it at this point anyway.
Want me to take that one, Lola?
Yeah, you can, yes.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. We do take that comment on board. I think we were in negotiations with the provider over a number of elements of the bid, which led to delays to our timeline, and we hadn't foreseen that there wasn't going to be a CPIC meeting in May, which is an oversight on our side, and therefore those are the general reasons, really. But yes, we can just apologise.
Okay, that makes complete sense. It's not quite the reason of the report, but thank you very much for note that. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments to the report? Councillor Woodley and Councillor Kennedy.
No, you go.
Hi, thank you, Lola. Thank you, Karen. It's really just that reassurance bit about specialist support for young parents. As you know, that's kind of a widely sort of held concern. You have offered a lot of reassurance already in terms about trying to transfer expertise across and capture knowledge and to continue with training. But I don't really sort of see that year-on-year commitment. We can bring it across, but then will it just be absorbed into the general sort of practice? So I think just understanding that young parents might need that extra bit of help and reassurance in terms of where to go and where to get that support. Annual training that's for that specific category. I don't know what you'd want to put in there, but I was hoping to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you say, it was something that came through really strongly from the recent Scrutiny Commission meeting and discussion. And there were some really great recommendations out of that we'll take forward into the mobilisation process. So the family nurses that currently deliver the FMP service, which focuses on supporting vulnerable young parents, are eligible to be 2P'd across, which obviously does mitigate against the risk. But I hear what you're saying about over time, will those sort of skills and expertise be diminished or be sort of subsumed into the wider service? And so what we can do is have some discussions with the provider over the mobilisation period around, I think training is a good idea. I think it would also be really useful to have a standing item on quarterly performance meetings to make sure that it is something that isn't, I guess, just forgotten about over time. So it's regularly picked up and discussed, so we can maybe ask for information and data around that specific cohort. So, the number of young parents that are currently being supported by the intensive service level, and what their outcomes are like, how they are maintaining the skills and expertise of the workforce to support the specific needs of that cohort. So I think that would be a really useful thing to build into our quarterly performance processes. There's also in the specification, there is a high impact role around vulnerable cohorts. And so we can pull out some of the young parents work through that role. So there's an individual that will be, there's a health visitor high impact role. So we can have conversations around making sure that role has a specific focus on young parents as well, which I think will help as a golden thread throughout the service provision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so my question leads on from that. I wanted some reassurance about the number of FMP staff who are TUPEing over, as opposed to the number who might drop out, or I hope there aren't any redundancies, but I don't know. And could you provide us with some reassurance, please?
Yeah, so there's currently 4 FNP nurses that are eligible for 2P and 1 service lead They're all still in post. So there's, as far as you know, from the last meeting, which was a couple of weeks back, so I haven't heard anything since, but we haven't had any redundancies or anyone dropping out. And so as soon as the award decision is made, we can then facilitate discussions between the incumbent provider and the new provider to essentially smooth that process out. So they are eligible for 2P, and I know that the provider it will be looking to do that 2P process. So it's just a case of us essentially facilitating it as much as possible, but the HR implications are on the incumbent and new provider.
Councillor Kennedy?
So that's all the staff at the moment?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Sorry,
it is. No, yeah.
Okay, thank you. If I could just look on the sustainable procurement issues, procuring green. I just, well, I thought maybe we could have said more here. I mean, for instance, transport, the whole issue of transport is missing from Make 1. Is there anything else to be said about Section 8?
I agree, and apologies. I think that there could be more said there. So I think there's more. There is. We had a section in the bid around in our method statement questions around social value, and within that there were quite a number of commitments around being a green provider, commitments towards net zero, and a very large number of actions within that. Unfortunately, I can't remember them off the top of my head because there were actually so many relating to the provider. But we could potentially follow up and provide that if that would be helpful.
Can I ask then that you do that, circulate that, a note on one of those to the committee? Yeah. Don't think you need to report back unless you've got any issues, but it would be helpful if you could provide us with a note of those. Yeah, with a bit more explanation. Okay then, so I think we can go to the recommendations if there are no more points from members.
No, I do want to look at the exempted appendix.
Okay, so shall we not take the recommendation now, but wait till we've considered the exempted appendices? Okay then, so the move then to item 9, the procurement of core insurance provision. And as I said, this is nice essentially for note, having delegated it previously, given the difficulties we experience in the market at the moment. And I think, is it Jamie Whitehouse is going to introduce the report? But
yeah, hello, thank you, Chair. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Jamie Whitehouse. I'm the Senior Insurance Officer. I'm here representing the Insurance Services team and Michael Pegram. This report is in relation to the core insurance provision. It's formed of 6 lots. The first, or lots 2 to 5, were actually agreed at the February CPIC. But the decision on lot 1, property insurance, was deferred and delegated to the Group Director, Finance and Corporate Resources. So the policy is actually incepted now, as of the 1st of April. So the inclusion of the report here is just as a note of process. However, and I think the report should do what it says on the tin, but I am here to answer any questions if you have any. So that's me. Thank you.
Has anyone got any questions or comments?
Exempt appendix again.
Okay, I was going to ask again about the whole issue of sustainable procurement and our ambitions in terms of green and green requirements and fair delivery issue, which I think we could have said more about in the report. I know it's insurance contracts, but it's still a substantial amount of money, and one would hope to see the council, it gets benefits from these areas. I know you talk about KPIs being developed.
Yeah.
But I think the committee would like to know a bit more about how we might.
Yeah, certainly. So
benefits from something like an insurance contract. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Wood, did you want to come in now, Councillor Woodley? No. All right.
Yeah. So so the social values did form part of the evaluation. I think we had 5% in there for the social values. And all of the insurers had a whole range of methods and initiatives, and like the previous person said, there was an awful lot in there in relation to how they could meet it. We did include some details within that report, but if that's not enough, then I'll be happy to share more.
That would be helpful if you would, both. I mean, I could pick up quite a lot of that in my role as a cabinet member, but for the matters that are interest of the committee, we should be helpful if we do a note on that. The note, you're also looking at some innovation or innovative practice in the contract, which would gel very well with those sorts of objectives.
Yeah, certainly. We can absolutely, we can share that. Absolutely.
Okay. Although we're going to look at it again in the confidential thing, I think we can safely note it at this stage, can't we, as we're asked to? Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's
right.
I'm getting lost between the confidential.
Yeah, I'm all about risk tonight, and the line that sort of made me a bit anxious was around inadequate levels of insurance cover due to inaccurate asset or activity information. I'm not sure the mitigation quite reads clearly to me, perhaps. I'm hoping you can be more reassuring verbally.
Yes,
evaluations under review. Now, I don't know if what you're sort of saying is that you'll essentially hold them under regular review. Yeah. The asset registers are all ready to go and reconciled. Yeah. But because I feel like we are constantly in a state of asset review.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, I mean, so this one specifically is in relation to property, and we are constantly evolving that. So as and when we are aware of any assets changing, they get translated or communicated to the insurers. So it's a constant conversation, and actually the insurers in this respect want regular updates in relation to how the assets are actually changing. Does that answer that question? I'm not sure if that's.
Well, I suppose the reassurance that I was looking for is that we are currently in a good place, and that we do an ongoing review and be allowed to do it and update it. But like, I feel like we're in an ever completing.
Well, it is the nature of the job and the role, I suppose, that it will never 100% be a finished thing. It's always up and being reviewed. So yeah, we are constantly reviewing. We are constantly telling the insurers of any changes. Yeah.
Okay then. So if we can note that report, thank you. But we're coming back to it again in the confidential section, if you don't mind hanging on.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay then. I've not been noted any other unrestricted business. So if I could move to read all that out. Yeah, can I move that the press and public will exclude from the proceedings of the Cabinet Procurement Committee during consideration of exempt items 11 and 12 on the agenda on the grounds that it is likely, in the view of the nature of the business to be transacted, that were members of the public to be present, there would be disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972 as amended.
Agreed.
Thank you. So can we